will they need a rule?
Okay, so to start off with, I want to do a problem that's a little bit simpler, and then we'll step up to more difficult ones. I want to look at something like this. If we have a room that is 8 foot 9 inches by 11 feet 8 inches, how are we going to find the perimeter of that? Well, we have two options to approach this. We know that this side over here is going to be the same as the left end, and the bottom should be the same as the top. Pardon my voice today. I know I'm a little hoarse. Sorry about that. So now to get a perimeter, we're just going to start at one corner, and we're going to add up the lengths as we go around the room. So we can add them all up, all 4 of them, or we can just add the 2 of them and multiply by 2. It makes no difference. Let's go about it in both ways, and you'll see how it works. So I'm going to add all 4 of them. I have 8 foot 9 inches, 11 foot 8 inches, 8 foot 9 inches again, excuse me, and 11 foot 8 inches again. We can add those all up at once. 9 and 8 is 17, plus another 9 is 26, plus another 8 is 34. Now, of course, 34 inches is bigger than 12. It's bigger than a foot. In fact, it's bigger than not only just 1 foot, it's bigger than 2 feet. Can we get a 3rd foot out of it? Not quite, right? 3 feet would be 36 inches. So we're only going to get 2 feet out of it. How many inches are going to be left over if we take out 2 feet? 2 times 12 would be 24. So 2 feet takes out 12 or 24 inches. That would leave 34 minus 24, or 10 inches. So we're going to keep our 10 inches here and carry that 2 feet. So 2 and 8 make 10, plus 11 is 21, plus another 8 is 29, plus another 11 is 40 feet. Now, as I had mentioned on Wednesday, I prefer to do it where I just add the 2 dimensions together and then multiply it by 2. Some people don't like doing the multiplication, so adding all 4 of them like that might be easier. But let's show you if I add them together and multiply by 2. So it's going to be very similar. 9 plus 8 is 17 inches. And of course, that is bigger than a foot. 1 foot. Take out 12, there's going to be 5 inches left over. So we are going to keep the 5 inches and carry the 1 foot. 1 and 8 makes 9, and 11 makes 20 feet. Now we have to multiply that measurement by 2. And in this case, it doesn't work so bad because 5 times 2 is 10 inches. We're still less than a foot, so we don't have to break it down and carry anything. 2 times 20 is 40 feet. So we'll get the same answer either way. It's up to you to decide which way is easier for you. Let's say that we have a board that is 9 feet 8 inches long. And we want to cut it into 4 equal pieces. How long will each piece be? Now we're going to ignore saw curves here, so we're going to assume the saw cuts it and doesn't take out any material. What I'm basically asking you to do is to take 9 foot 8 inches and divide by 4. For me, division works best if I set it up like this with a long division. I mean, you can do it like this, 9 feet, 8 inches, divide by 4, but that just really confuses me when I do it that way. If I do it out as long division, 4 goes into 9 twice, so that'd be 2 feet. 2 feet times 4 is 8 feet. Subtracting, I get 1 foot. Before I bring down my 8 inches, I have to convert my 1 foot into inches. That'd be 12 inches. Bringing down my 8, I now have 20 inches. So 20 inches divided by 4 is 5 inches. And that is a full 20 inches, so there's nothing left over. Some of you might prefer to do it by changing them all to inches and then dividing. So if I were going to do that, 9 feet, 8 inches. How do I convert that into all inches? Where do I start? The 8 inches is already in inches. So I got to change the 9 feet into inches. What do I do to the 9 feet to make it inches? Perfect. Times 12. So 9 times 12 is 108. Plus the 8 inches that are already there is 116. Now I can divide that by 4. 116 divided by 4 is going to be 29, right? Once you get that answer, we're still going to have to convert it back into feet and inches. Now, hopefully from 29 inches, it isn't too bad for you, but let's go through the process again on the calculator if I wanted to use the calculator for that. I'm going to divide by 12 to make it feet. It's going to give me 2.416666667 feet. What that's telling me, the number in front of the decimal point is my whole number of feet. So I'll come over here and I'll record 2 feet. So now here I've already recorded the 2 feet, so I'm going to take off the 2 feet. I'm going to subtract the 2. So all that I'm left with is the decimal part after the decimal point. Those decimal feet have to be converted back into inches. So to convert back into inches, I'm going to multiply by 12. Gives me the 5 inches. Now, I don't want you guys to become calculator dependent, but that is a process I want you to get relatively comfortable with. If I give you feet, inches, or decimal inches, I need you to be able to convert between the forms. So let's do a couple of examples of giving you decimal inches, and I want you to convert it into feet, inches, and then let's go to 1/16 of an inch, 16ths. So if I give you 79.34 inches, and I want that into feet, inches, and 16ths of an inch. So I'm going to start out on my calculator, 79.34. Since this is in inches, I first have to start out by turning it into feet. How do I turn inches into feet? Divide by 12. Perfect. So I get 6.1166 or 6.6116666 blah blah blah. What do I need from that? All I need is what's in front of the decimal point, the 6. That's my 6 whole feet. Now I've recorded the 6 feet, so I'm going to take them off of there. I'm just going to subtract the 6, leaving just the decimal portion of the number. Now that's still feet. What am I going to do to that? Times. Perfect. Multiply by 12 to take it back into inches. So I now have 7.34 inches. Notice I had 0.34 before. It goes back to that. So I know I'm back in inches. So I'm going to have 7 whole inches here. So again, once I've recorded the whole inches, I'm going to subtract the part that's in front of the decimal point, my whole inches. So I'm going to subtract 7. I'm left with 0.34. Now that's 0.34. If I wanted to, I could think of it as 0.34 over 1. What am I going to have to do to that to turn it into 16ths? Remember we did times 16 to turn the 1 into 16ths? But if we multiply the bottom by 16, we have to multiply the top by 16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 0.34 times 16. Gives us 5.44. We know that that is between 5/16 and 6/16. Which one is it closer to, 5 or 6? 5, yeah, 5.4. All we really care about, we don't even really need to write down the other digits. All we really care about is this tenths place, the first digit after the decimal point. That is a 4. So since it is less than 5, we're rounding down. We're staying with the 5/16. So this is 5/16 goes in here. So this is 6 feet, 7 and 5/16 inches. I'm going to have you guys try one for me. If I give you 134.19 inches, convert that into feet, inches, and 16ths. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to give that a shot, and we'll discuss it. So if we start out with this in the calculator, we're going to put in the 134.19. That's inches, of course. What do we do to change it to feet? Careful. Not multiply, but divide it. We're going to a larger unit, so we have to divide. So 11.1825. So what do we need from that? The 11. So we're going to write down 11 over here. Now what are we going to do on our calculator? We're going to get rid. There you go. We've used the 11, so we're going to subtract 11. So what's left here is the decimal portion. That is decimal feet. So we want to get that back into inches. So we are going to multiply by 12. Good. So it's 2.19 inches now. What do we need off of that? The 2. So we're going to record our 2 inches. And now we've used them, so we're going to subtract the 2. Now here's the tricky part. What do we do with the 0.19? The 0.19 is our decimal inches, and we need to turn that into 16ths. If we were doing it on paper, it'd just be 0.19 over 1, and we'd multiply by 16 over 16 to turn it into 16ths. On the calculator, we're just going to multiply it by 16. That's saying it would be 3.04 16ths. So again, that's between 3/16 and 4/16. This one's not even close. Which one's it closer to? 3/16. Perfect. So this is 11 feet, 2 and 3/16. If you didn't have the calculator handy and you needed to do this by hand, you would look through here and you'd have to ask, how many times does 12 go into 134? Well, 12 goes into 120 10 times, but 120 would leave us with 14.12 left over. So that's not big enough. We need another 12. So another foot or another 12 inches onto 120 would be 132. So let's try 132. That leaves us with 2.1. Oops, I don't know where I got the 2 on the end. That should be 9. That leaves us with 2.19 inches. So that 132, remember, was 12 times. We did 10 was 120. This was one more, so that's times 11. So 12 times 11 is 132. So that's 11 feet. Now we got the 2.19. That is 2 inches. So we need to take just the decimal portion, the 0.19 over 1, and do our times 16 over 16 again, just like we did here. getting to 3.04 over 16, or 3/16. This process changes slightly if we start out with feet instead of inches. So let's say we start out with 7.58 feet. To change this into feet, inches, and 16ths, a fraction of an inch, well, when we start out, it's already in feet, so I'm just going to take the 7 off of it. So if we're going to use the calculator on this, we don't even have to put in the 7. We just start out with the 0.58. What are we going to do with that? Well, we need to change it now into inches. It's currently as feet. So to get from feet into inches, it's a smaller unit, so we will multiply by 12 to the smaller unit. So 6.96. So that is 6 whole inches. We've got the 0.96 left. We'll subtract 6 to get 0.96. If we're going to 16ths, we're going to multiply by 16. It's going to give us 15.36 over 16. That's between 15/16 and 16/16. Which is it closer to? 15 says 15/16. Now, if that were 15.5 or higher, it would round up to 16/16. We would just add another whole inch to that, so it becomes 7 inches. Let's look at another one. Oh, let's do 12.874 feet. I want you to try that in your notes. See if you can convert that into feet, inches, and the appropriate fraction of an inch to the nearest 16th. I'll give you a couple minutes. So if we look at this, it's already in feet, so we can just take the 12 part in front of the decimal point and make that our feet. So all we are working with is the 0.874. That is feet. We need to turn it into inches. What do we have to do? Times 12. Good. So we get 10.488. So that is 10 inches. All we're worried about off that is the 0.488. We're going to multiply it by 16 to turn it into 16ths. Oops, sorry. What did I forget to do? I have to subtract my 10 whole inches first. Now I can multiply by 16. 7.8 16ths, which of course is going to round to, yeah, exactly, 8. It's between 7 and 8. Much closer to 8/16, which is going to reduce to a 1/2 inch. So 12 foot, 10 and a half. Okay. The next thing we want to look at, problem we looked at similar to this last week, or last class, I should say. So we've got a round window here. And this window, or a half round window, I should say, has a diameter of 4 feet, 10 inches. I want to know how much trim to purchase to go around this window. So we're going to take this step by step. Step 1 is find the circumference of the circle. Remember, circumference, and we're assuming that this would be, if we assume this were a full circle, remember circumference is equal to pi, which is, we're going to use 3.14, or your pi button on your calculator, times diameter. So before we can do step 1, we need to do something with our diameter. What are we going to do to our 4'10"? Convert it all into inches. So how are we going to do that? Perfect. 4 times 12 is 48. Add the 10 inches to it. Good. That gives us 58 inches of diameter. So our circumference is going to be 3.14 times 58. So 182.12 inches. Now that's a full circle. We only have a half circle here, this distance around here. So what do we have to do to the 182.12 inches?
Divide that by 2.
Perfect. We're going to divide it by 2. It's 91.06 inches. So that is the arched portion, the half circular portion of the window. What piece do we still need to include? We need to add in the flat bottom. The flat bottom across here, the 58 inches. Now technically I should put in 0.00 here. So 6 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. Bring down the decimal. 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 plus 5 is 14. So 149.06. Now last time we were working on these on Wednesday, we just converted this now back into feet, inches, and sixteenths. But I'm going to add something to it today. I want to add 2.5 inches per corner. The reason I'm adding 2.5 inches per corner is on these corners I'm going to have to make some sort of a mitered cut. That mitered cut is going to waste a certain portion of trim because you cut that angle off to get the next piece, you're going to have to cut it straight again. Now, depending on the width of our trim, it could be more or less than 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches would actually be the waist for 1.25 inch trim, so fairly narrow trim. So we're going to cut off 2.5 or add 2.5 inches per corner, which means this has 2 corners, so we're going to add 2.5 times 2 is how much? That's 5 inches. Perfect. Thank you. Those guys still alive back there?
I think they're sleeping.
Okay. So we've got 0.06. 9 plus 5 is 14 is 5. 154.06. Well, I'm going to have you guys try one for me quick. Six foot 8 inches across. And again, we're going to add 2.5 inches per corner at each corner. So I want you to try to find how much trim we need to go around that window for me quick in your notes. Step 1, circumference of a circle. So to find the circumference of that circle, what do we have to do before we can multiply by 3.14? Perfect. Convert that to inches. So how's that going to work? What do we have to do that?
Multiply by 12.
We do the feet times, perfect. The feet times 12, 6 times 12 is 72. Then what?
Add 8.
Add the 8. So that becomes 80 inches. Perfect. So in our circumference here, that's going to be 3.14 times 80 inches. Which gives us
251.20.
251.20 inches of circumference. What's step 2? Well, that's a full circle, so what do we have to do to it?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. 251.20 divided by 2, of course that was inches, is going to be 125.60 inches. Perfect. I'm going to leave it from there. I'm going to let you guys keep going. So I'm going to let you guys do the next couple of steps on your own again. So once we got the 125.60 for this arched portion, the half circular portion, what do we have to add to that? We have to add the flat piece, which is the 80 inches, which adds up to 205.60 inches. Then what do we have to do? Well, we have to add in our allowance for the corners. Again, we have 2 corners, so we are going to add 2.5 times 2, which is, once again, 5 inches. So 210.60 inches. Now we're going to take this one step further. So in your notes, take that 210.60 inches, and I want that in feet, inches, and to the nearest 1/8 inch. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that conversion. So this is starting with inches. So I'm going to put 210.6 in the calculator. What's the first step I have to do? Well, it's inches, so I have to turn it into feet by doing what? Divide by 12. Good. So it gives me 17.55. What do I do with that?
Record the 17.
We record the 17. That's our whole feet. Then what?
Subtract the 17.
Subtract the 17 because we've already used it. Then
Multiplied by 12.
Okay, we're going to turn it back into inches by multiplying by 12. Perfect. Now we get 6.6. What do we do with that?
Record the 6.
Record the 6. That's our whole inches. Perfect. And then?
Subtract the 6.
Subtract the 6. Now we're going to the nearest eighth here, so that changes our next step a little bit from what we did before. What are we going to do?
Multiply by 8.
Times 8. Before it was times 16 because we're going to the nearest 16th. So that's 4.8 over 8 is what that's saying. So we're between 4/8 and 5/8. Which one are we closest to?
5/8.
5/8. So that is 17 feet, 6 5/8 inches. Okay. What if I give you a drawing something like this? And I want dimension A here, and I want dimension B here. And I tell you that this is 48 feet, 10 inches. This up here is 11 feet, 11 inches. And this down here is 13 feet, 8 inches. The bottom down here is going to be 52 feet, 9 inches. This here we're going to make 16 feet, 10 inches. And this piece up here, 10 feet, 3 inches. I want to find dimensions A and B. Now we've done this before in simple drawings where we just had whole numbers of feet there. The process is still the same. The simplest one to find here is going to be dimension B. What dimensions are we going to use to find B? Well, is dimension B, is it vertical or horizontal? It's vertical. So we're only going to use other vertical dimensions to work with dimension B. Now we can see here, these three, the 13/8, B, and the 11/11 have to add up to 48/10. So how are we going to work backwards to get dimension B? I would start out with the 11/11 and the 13/8, and I would add them together to get the total distance of those two. 11 and 8 make 19 inches. What am I going to do with that? It's more than a foot, so I can get out 1 foot with how many inches left? $19 minus 12 is 7. So there's 7 inches left. So I'm going to keep my 7 inches, carry my 1 foot. Now I've got 1 and 1 is 2, plus 3 is 5. 1 and 1 is 2, so that's 25 feet. So I've got 25 feet, 7 inches is just these two pieces added together. What do I have to do with those? Well, I take my 48 feet, 10 inches, and I'm going to subtract 25 feet, 7 inches. 10 minus 7 is 3 inches. 48 minus 25, we can do 8 minus 5 is 3, 4 minus 2 is 2. 23 feet, 3 inches. Excuse me. Now for dimension A. Dimension A is vertical or horizontal? Horizontal. So we're going to use our other horizontal dimensions to find dimension A. This one isn't as straightforward. We don't just add up dimensions and subtract it from a total. This one, we're going out to here, and then we're coming back, and then we got to go back out. So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to use this edge here as kind of like a 0 point. I'm going to measure the distance from that edge. So out to here, at this end of this bottom wall, the horizontal bottom wall, I'm at 52 feet 9 inches away from this edge. Which is also, I'm 52 feet 9 inches here, because this is vertical. It doesn't move side to side. If I come back to here, how do I get this distance? Well, that would be the 52 feet 9 inches minus 16 feet 10 inches. When I go to subtract those, 9 minus 10, of course, can't be done, so what do I have to do? Borrow from that, makes it 1 foot. What's the 9 going to become?
19.
Careful. I didn't borrow 10, I borrowed a foot, which contains how many inches? 12 inches. So I have to take the 9 and I have to add 12 to it. Gives me 21 inches. I will catch a lot of people doing exactly that on the quiz, just putting a 1 in front of the 9. You got to remember, you borrowed a foot. You borrowed 12 inches. So 21 minus 10 is 11 inches. Now we've got 51 minus 16, so I'm going to make this 4 and this 11. 11 minus 6 is 5. 4 minus 1 is 3. So that's 35 feet 11 inches. So from here to here is 35 feet 11 inches. That would be the same distance here. But I have to get out to this full distance for A, so what am I going to have to do to my 3511? I'm going to have to add how much? My 10 foot 3 inches. So 35 feet 11 inches plus 10 feet 3 inches. So 11 plus 3 is 14 inches. What am I going to have to do with that? I'm going to have to make it 1 foot and how many inches?
2 inches.
2, perfect. 2 inches, perfect. 1 foot takes 12 inches out of 14, so there's 2 left. So I'm going to keep my 2 inches, carry my 1 foot. 1 and 5 is 6, plus 0 is 6. 3 and 1 is 4. That's 46 feet, 2 inches. So A up here, 46 feet, 2 inches. What do you think? Do those all make sense? I'm going to have you guys try one then on your own. Quick. I don't know why that one's leaning to the left, but assume all the angles are square corners or right angles. We're going to have you looking for dimensions A and B here. This is 54 feet 3 inches. This piece here is going to be 12 feet 9 inches. This piece here will be 10 feet 7 inches. Up here is going to be 16 feet 8 inches. Over here, we're going to do 31 feet, 11 inches. And over here, this is going to be 22 feet, 9 inches. So in your notes, I want you to take a few minutes, try to find dimensions A and B for me. Let's take a look and let's do a dimension B here. Because I think dimension B is probably the easier one of the two to find. We'll start out with that quick. Dimension B is horizontal, so I'm going to use other horizontal dimensions. We can see by looking at those horizontal dimensions that B would be found by taking the 54.3 and subtracting the total of those two. So we're going to start out by finding the total of those two. 12 foot 9 inches plus 16 feet 8 inches. Nine and 8 makes 17 inches. Now I'm going to carry my 1 foot. Take away 12, that means there's 5 inches left over. So I got 1 and 2 is 3, plus 6 is 9. 1 and 1 is 2. So that's 29 feet 5 inches. So that is from here all the way to here, adding those two together. So now I am going to take my 54 feet 3 inches, and I'm going to subtract the 29 feet 5 inches from it. Three minus 5 can't be done, so I'm going to borrow from my 4. That's 3 now. What's the 3 inches become? Not 13, but 3 plus 12 is going to be 15 inches. 15 minus 5 will be 10 inches. 53 minus 29, I'll borrow, make that 4, and this will be 13. 13 minus 9 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. So dimension B is 24 feet, 10 inches. Did anybody get 24 feet, 10 inches for that one? How many of you would have had it but just needed more time? Okay, good. Well, now for dimension A, I made this one a little bit easier on you. A is vertical, so I'm going to use other vertical dimensions. Dimension A here could be found by finding the total of these two and subtracting out the 22.9. So we're going to do 31.11 and plus 10 foot 7. So 31 feet 11 inches plus 10 feet 7 inches. Eleven and 7 makes 18 inches. We split that up into 1 foot and how many inches? Somebody said it there. 6 inches. Perfect. So we keep the 6 inches, carry the 1 foot. 1 and 1 is 2. 3 and 1 is 4. So 42 feet 6 inches. That goes all the way from here up to here. So now we have to subtract from that 42 feet 6 inches, subtract our 22.9. So now, 6 minus 9 can't be done, so we're going to borrow from the 1. This is going to become how many inches? 18, good. We had to add 12 to it. So 18 minus 9 is 9 inches. 1 minus 2, we'll borrow again. That's 3 and 11. 11 minus 2 is 9. 3 minus 2 is 1. So it's 19 feet 9 inches. So A is 19 feet 9 inches. How many of you feel confident you can do that on a quiz? Okay. Well, it is that time where I think we're going to cover maybe one or two more things, and then I'll get you started on your quiz. One thing I should review, we kind of mentioned it real quickly. If I want to measure the length, pretend that's a straight line. If I want to measure its length, how am I going to go about doing that? Well, I'm going to take a ruler. I'm going to line that ruler up so the zero end of the ruler lines up with one end of the line. Should have rotated this one a bit. And then I'm going to look on my ruler to see what marking on the ruler lines up or closest to this other end of my line. So one of the things we have to be able to do is go look at our ruler and figure out what each marking stands for. Because I may ask you to go to the nearest eighth or nearest 16th. You need to figure out where those markings are. So if you recall from when we were doing our discussion on degree of precision, the way we have to, for degree of precision, we had to figure out what each marking meant. The way you do that is you pick 2 whole inches. I don't ever use the beginning end of the ruler because a lot of times the corners up here are rounded off and the first couple of markings might be hard to see and it might not even be there anymore. So I usually go from like 1 inch to 2 inch. And I count how many divisions, how many spaces there are. Hopefully on your ruler they're a little bit more even than on mine here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces there. So each of those spaces, 1 inch is divided into 8 pieces. That's 1/8 of an inch for each space. So now this line here, if I wanted it to the nearest 1/8 inch, well, it comes in right there. That's really close to the 3.5 inches. Now, how can I say it's 3.5? Well, 1/2 is still an 1/8. It's just in reduced form. So just because I say to the nearest 1/8 inch, does not mean you have to get it to come out at an 1/8. It can be 1/2 or 1/4 or 3/4 or whatever. Something to foreshadow a little bit to next week. If I have 3 square feet, how many square inches is that going to be? Well, most people would want to jump in and say 36. But there's a problem with that. 3 feet would be 36 inches, but this isn't feet and this isn't inches. It's square feet and square inches. And what is a square foot? Well, a square foot is defined to be a square that is 1 foot by 1 foot. Well, 1 foot is 12 inches, so that's 12 inches by 12 inches. We've discussed some basic areas already, and we're going to discuss more here in the next week. The area of a rectangle, or in this case a square, is its length times its width. 12 inches times 12 inches. 12 times 12 is 144. Inches times inches is inches squared. So this 1 square foot is equal to 144 square inches. So if I were going to convert up here, I wouldn't be using 12 anymore. I'd have to deal with 144. What if I had 3,456 cubic inches, and I want to convert that into cubic feet? Well, again, I'm not going to divide by 12 because it's not inches and feet, it's cubic inches and cubic feet. Could I divide by 144? Well, that was for square inches and square feet and square inches. So for cubic feet and cubic inches, well, once again, we'll look at what a cubic foot is. A cubic foot is defined to be a cube that is 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. 1 cubic foot. That's a foot in 3 directions. Well, that would be 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. So basic volume, length, times width, times height, 12 times 12 times 12 is 1,728 cubic inches in that cubic foot. So 1 cubic inch, or 1 cubic foot is 1,728 cubic inches. The way we could get those conversions, if we didn't want to draw out the cube and the square, 1 foot equals 12 inches. We're dealing with squared. We can square both of those. 1 squared is still 1. Feet squared is feet squared. 12 squared is 12 by 12, or 144. Inches squared or inches squared. That is our conversion for areas, square inches to square feet. Same would go down here. You know that 1 foot equals 12 inches. To get that to cubic feet in cubic inches, we have to cube it to the power of 3. 1 to the 3rd power, 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. Feet to the 3rd power is feet to the 3rd, or feet cubed, cubic feet. 12 to the 3rd power, 12 times 12 times 12 is 1,728. Inches to the 3rd power is just inches cubed. We're going to talk about this a lot more next week, but it's just something I wanted to put out there this week because this is something that generally you have to see a few times before you get used to it. Okay, for now, I'm going to let you guys do your quiz. I also on Wednesday cut you short on homework time. I only gave you like 7 or 8 minutes of homework time. So the last 28 minutes here, 27 minutes, is to work on your quiz and finish up your homework from Wednesday. Is Mr. Berghammer in there with the quizzes, or up there? Thanks.